I must admit that since its inception, the progress of SAARC has been disappointing. The model that we had really was the European Union. And the European Union is really a miracle. It happened in our own lifetimes. I mean, we grew up reading about all the wars that took place, the 100 Years' War and the 30 Years' War and the Wars of the Roses, Napoleonic Wars, and millions of people massacred on the battlefields of Europe, particularly Germany, France, and the UK. And today you can travel in Europe, you do not know where France ends and where Germany begins. The lira has disappeared, the mark has disappeared, the franc has disappeared. I mean, it's really something quite extraordinary. The Europeans, I don't think, are as impressed with it as we are. Because for us, to see this happening in our own lifetime was really an extraordinary experience. When we started traveling, there were all these countries. So, dekhte, the countries virtually, the barriers disappeared, and you had the European Union with a single currency. Now, that was the sort of idea, I believe, that was behind SAARC. For a variety of reasons into which I would not go, it has not yet developed on those lines. But keeping political issues apart, there are so many potential areas for work in a composite manner, in a cooperative manner. For example, economics and commercial links. There could be vast savings and vast additions to our growth in all these countries if there was easier movement of goods between them. I mean, there's a situation now apparently where if something from here has got to Pakistan, it has to go first of all perhaps to Singapore or somewhere like that, and then it's got to fly across. I mean, these sort of things are totally irrational, whatever the reasons for it. I'm just giving one example. So if the connectivity improves, if our trade barriers were to be reduced, just think of the amount of advantage that the people, and particularly the underdeveloped sections of society, would have. Then there are, for example, water management. Cannot be done on a single country basis because the rivers are not in only single countries. The rivers are joint. Hardly any river, any major river belongs to any one country. And therefore, water management is not possible without cooperation of SAARC. The Himalayan environment. The Himalayas are common to almost all the SAARC, except the island countries, are common. And the development of the Himalayas, the Himalayan tourism, the protection of the Himalayan environment, which is getting more and more destroyed as we go along. These are things that, power projects, I mean, these are win-win situations. So one would have hoped that more of these would have developed by now. Then there are cultural and educational links. And I'd like to stress that because actually I was president of the ICCR for 9 years, just given up my office. And it was the ICCR, by the way, that sponsored SAARC. So don't give him all the credit. We sponsored SAARC and we decided on Jaisalmer yellow and Kerala green and Puducherry blue. And the fourth one was supposed to be Himalayan white. The idea being that when you get these camps together, it's quite extraordinary. When you have artists, creative people together, we send them out to these places for a fortnight where they live and they work together and they eat together and they produce these paintings and they leave some of their paintings for the ICCR. So on the one hand, ICCR enriches its collection of paintings, and on the other, you have this extraordinary interaction. Another thing that I did, for which I do take some credit, we started I'm a rock addict apart from other things. So we started a rock festival. We have boy bands from all these countries. They come together in Purana Kila and they play. And thousands of youngsters turn up there. We have bands from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from Sri Lanka, from all these countries. And you should see the energy. And when you're at those rock concerts, there's no question of anybody being an Indian or a Pakistani or a Sri Lankan or a Bangladeshi. I mean, they're all young people enjoying the music. So once you have art, and once you have culture, once you have music, then you will find that these barriers, inner barriers, dissolve and disappear. That's another area where we can do a lot. Literature. Languages are shared. For example, India shares Urdu and Punjabi with Pakistan, Hindi and Nepali with Nepal, Bengali with Bangladesh, Tamil with Sri Lanka. And you have writers, literateurs, when they come across from one country to another. For example, if there's a Bengali writers group, you cannot do it without the Bangladeshi writers. Or if you have a mushaira, it has to be Pakistan. It will not work otherwise. Whenever we do our Jashn Khusro, we always have Abida or somebody or other come, and the Pakistani artists are the ones that are most popular in India, whether they are Sufi singers or whether they are poets. The Rabindranath Tagore big celebration that we did was jointly done by India and Bangladesh, because Gurudev wrote the national anthem for both our countries. So these are the sort of linkages that I personally feel, quite apart from barriers and political subjects. These are the areas which really we need to develop. Because once these develop properly, I think they will lay the background for the solution of many problems. So I remember growing up, we used to have to say, write short notes on Alsace-Lorraine. I don't think anybody cares today where Alsace-Lorraine, or nobody's even forgotten about Alsace-Lorraine, because the whole situation has changed. So once you have a change of heart, once you have a change of consciousness, I think that is the only way in which we are going to really be able to make SAARC what the European Union is. In the last summit in 2014, the motto was deeper integration for peace and prosperity. So this integration, I feel, has to be economic, it has to be developmental, but above all, I think it has to be cultural. Now, these articles you'll find here, I haven't been able to read all of them, but it's really quite fascinating. And many of the aspects that I have touched upon are covered in this. And we have a very distinguished panel today. We have Their Excellencies, the High Commissioners of 3 SAARC countries. And with me, it makes 4 SAARC countries. At least we have half of SAARC is present here today. Now, our third and final panelist is His Excellency Professor Sudarshan Seneve-Ratne, High Commissioner of Sri Lanka, who has spent many years in India.
Thank you, Dr. Karan Singh, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all members of the High Table. When I look at SAARC, I always recollect my own memories and also my experiences I had in this country and all over SAARC. I came from the southern tip of South Asia, Sri Lanka, and I was placed in New Delhi for 10 years, and my research was on Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, so I went all the way back to the south. Once I finished my research and went back to my country, I also had wonderful opportunities working as a UNESCO and also SAARC, various activities, which took me to different countries in the SAARC region. So that brought me to South Asia, to Bangladesh, to Pakistan, to the Maldives, and various other countries, which brought the reality of the SAARC as an entity that where the what I would call the unification of SAARC to be seen as the oneness. We have to actually draw the strands out through both history and other areas, what we see as our mission, and try to understand SAARC even as an alternative to the NAM. Now, one of the things I like to point out is some things that may have not missed out, they have been touched upon in this volume, to understand in the dual contradiction we have in SAARC. That is, on the one hand, we have the reaching out and the connectivity we have in the SAARC, and on the other hand, we have the fissures that have vertical, what I call kind of dialectical contradictions we have within the SAARC that were largely imposed on us through the colonial ideology and then perpetuated in the post-colonial period as a very useful escape conduit. Now, it is also important that we then try to understand how we situate SAARC and try to understand the personality of SAARC. And this is why my own experience and my own specialization as a heritage manager and also as a member of the university community where we had been connected to so many SAARC initiatives. We've been trying to understand as to how we deal with SAARC and try to understand its personality. Are we looking at the SAARC originally created through different boundaries, sort of in a way imposed on colonialism, and the colonial construct as we see is extremely narrow, it's kind of vertical. Then if you go horizontal, do we try to understand SAARC as more cultural region, an entity, and then you scratch the surface and you find the commonality we always have, which we do not recognize very often. Now, trying to understand this aspect, looking at the both contextualizing SAARC, I like to move the SAARC region into a broader matrix, that is the IRA. Because we have missed out IRA very often. The commonalities we have with IRA is almost all the IRA countries are former colonies.
Could you spell that acronym out, please, for the audience?
Indian Ocean Rim Association, which is actually the Indian Ocean Rim. And if you see this as a world system, it is very interesting to see the commonalities we have. Now, South Asian region actually moves into the Indian Ocean Rim area. And it is located in the middle of that. And we are very strategically located, both culturally and politically, and also in the landscape. And this has to be recognized. And this is, in a way, what provides us the strength to see SAARC as the connectivity we can establish between world systems. In fact, if you look at Ahmed, Asia Middle East dialogue, which went on in Singapore for some time, I'm not really sure whether it's on now. It was brilliant the way they actually brought the West Asian region into Southeast Asia. And also some of us also participated in this. But it was the, what you call the person or the individual or the country that was the matchmaker. And especially it was largely more than cultural, it was economic enterprise that we actually brought in. And you could see the investments that came into Singapore on these areas, and that was a very strong binding factor. Now, if you move further, drawing from my own experience in archaeology, history, and heritage, one thing we have to really take into consideration about the past in the present and present in the past in our region. We cannot divorce that, whether we like it or not. So, if we are, on the one hand, if we try to understand what colonialism imposed on us, and the kind of imagined realities that were imposed on us as what we call vertical divisions, then we have to understand what actually the past endowed to this region and the commonalities we actually shared. Now, in this context, I like to bring out, Sri Lanka went through a bloody carnage of 30 years in their war. And we actually got first-hand experience on how we are going to manage not only our existence, but the future generation as well. And this was one thing we were working out, how could we actually use heritage for conflict resolution? And that was one of the key areas we worked for the last 20 years through the universities, through government agencies, through NGOs, all these areas where we try to reach out to people. In fact, Sri Lanka was, in fact, what I would call a laboratory situation where we tried it. And it worked like a miracle in many areas. And this is how we are trying to reach out. There may be glitches here and there, but still, it is a very powerful reaching out program we can actually use. And what we did was trying to understand heritage, not by making it stand alone, but also trying to understand heritage, which could be expanded all the way to the SAARC, not merely as a cultural entity, but also as heritage to be redefined as culture, environment, information from the past or knowledge from the past, and also the next generation. So unless you have all these four aspects there, and if you pull the plug on one, heritage tends to collapse, and also the great advantages we could actually reap out of heritage management and how we could use heritage to reach out the people, especially for people-to-people connectivity. Now, it is here that we have to actually look at this people-to-people dialogue as an alternative dialogue. For our own misery, sometimes policymakers, politicians often, they lost it. And I think it's the people. I see my friend Rajiv here, the artist, the people who try to understand the depth of heritage, what the past has given to us, and how we can translate that into the future, and to try to see more than the differences, the commonalities we actually have, and appreciate that and celebrate that. And this is something, SAARC is in fact an open arena for this kind of thing. And this is how we try to work out. I think Sri Lanka was fortunate, and us members of the SAARC region supported us. We got the the SAARC Cultural Center, and just last year we managed to clinch the IRA Cultural Center, Heritage Center. Now these are very powerful centers. How do we bring people together? And in fact, there were a whole set of activities. We went through various areas. How do we have shared heritage? How do we reach out to the people? Working camps. If you have our friends in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Maldives, and all the other countries coming together, especially the youth, and this worked out very well, I must say. Because this is the next generation that is going to be the leadership, not like us, the redundant people who actually lost it all very often. In Sri Lanka, I say, our generation was the lost generation, and we actually messed it up. So we are looking at the future generation. How are we attempting to make them appreciate, to reach out? Now the differences. If it's craft technology, if it's the artist, as Sir you said about the rock music, how do you reach out through this medium, and to touch people? And this has been a great success at all these events, and how we actually try to work out further other strategies on this. Now, one of the things we actually forgot was about peace education. It's something which UNESCO and UN have actually prescribed. And Sri Lanka has worked out UNESCO school clubs. It's been extremely successful. This is a microscopic kind of activity what we could do at the SAARC level. Working out UNESCO school clubs or SAARC school clubs where children of different ages come together. We also experimented, at least in archaeology, from different countries, we brought them together, the middle level professionals together, camp out in heritage sites, they connect with each other, and in the next 10 to 12 years, they might be the senior management where you could take the telephone and just say, hey, do me this favor. I've been blessed with that, living here in India. We just connecting my friends, those school friends for various things, and they've been so helpful for various things. And this is the thing, these are the hidden aspects, reach out programs we could actually work out. And also, if you are looking at economic cooperation, something we are working out is actually we have to look at multi-track synergies. We cannot even work out economic diplomacy now. I mean, just forget about the track 1 and track 2. We have to go into multi-track situations. We cannot let anything now stand alone. If you are working out the Buddhist heritage tracks, we have to use the Hindu heritage. In fact, very recently in Punjab, I was talking about the track with Sikhism because Guru Nanak had visited Sri Lanka. So this is bringing people together about the Hindu sites, Islamic sites, the Christian sites, the pilgrims they are working on. So we have not actually explored these areas in a more productive way. And also using tourism with greater potentiality. I mean, not only heritage for various things. And this is why I say that multi-track works very well, whether it's religious, whether it's economic cooperation. We are looking at our countries, how can they be used as transshipment areas? And how much are we willing to cooperate with those things? Sri Lanka may be having particular advantages because it's at the tip of the southern areas, but other countries have similar advantages. So what I'm actually doing is trying to explore areas and some areas which are not to be left with the specialist, but also it's what you call reaching out program. We have to understand what the SAARC, the spirit of the SAARC is, ladies and gentlemen, and I think we should celebrate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.